Red Sox caps and Patriots jerseys absolutely everywhere. The bridge itself is about 2.5 miles long, actually half a mile longer than the Golden Gate Bridge. And unfortunately, during rush hour, Bostonians like to call it the longest parking lot in the world. However, I recently found out that it costs 24,000 gallons of paint to paint that bridge.
Boston Harbor Cruises, #1. This is the opening day of 2020 season.
Now we're getting a little bit closer to the Charlestown Navy Yard. I would like to point out this tall obelisk stone monument here. This is the Bunker Hill Monument. It commemorates the Battle of Bunker Hill. The Battle of Bunker Hill didn't actually happen on Bunker Hill. It was supposed to. The Patriot general told his men to go to Bunker Hill. They accidentally went to Breeds Hill, and for some reason, it's still called the Battle of Bunker Hill. Nobody really knows why, probably a mistake by a map maker. But this so-called Battle of Bunker Hill was one of the first major battles of the Revolution. During that battle, the Patriot general told his men, "Don't fire till you can see the whites of their eyes." He told them that because they were running out of ammunition very quickly and they needed to save it. The monument is 221 feet tall and it is 294 steps all the way to the top. I don't know if it's open right now. I would actually probably assume that it is not open right now. I haven't actually researched that. But when it is open, it is a hike up there. But the view up there is absolutely gorgeous. Now we're getting a little bit closer to the Charlestown Navy Yard, and we're going to see some very cool ships. First ship here is this gray ship, says 793 on the stern. This is the USS Cassin Young. She's a World War II Fletcher-class destroyer, one of the last ships to be hit by a kamikaze pilot. When it hit, unfortunately, it did kill 22 people, but it didn't sink the ship herself. So here she stands at the Charlestown Navy Yard as a floating museum, and occasionally you can walk around on the Cassin Young. It's a cool place to explore. And on the other side of the Navy Yard, we have the pièce de résistance, the USS Constitution. She was built in 1797. She's the oldest commissioned warship still afloat in the entire world. She's most known for her Battle of 1812 off the coast of Nova Scotia against the HMS Guerriere. Now, during that battle, the HMS Guerriere noticed that her cannonballs were bouncing off the USS Constitution. That caused someone to exclaim, "Huzzah! Her sides are made of iron." Her sides are not actually made out of iron, but it did give her the nickname Old Iron Sides. Her sides are made out of 22-inch thick Georgia live oak. She sank the HMS Guerriere in only 35 minutes, and at the end of that battle, she had 19 cannonballs stuck in her side. So that will tell you how strong of a girl she is. And usually, I don't think that this happened this year, but they will take her out on the 4th of July. Actually, I read they didn't take her out on the 4th of July, but they did do a 21-gun salute in which they fired off 21 cannons during the 4th of July. They do that every once in a while, and next time they take her out, I'm sure that there will be people on all of these piers and wharves watching her go. It's quite a spectacular sight. Now as we turn here, a little bit ahead of us, we're about to pass the Leonard P. Zagum Bridge. And I want to point out these two structures on top of the bridge. They might look a little bit like the Bunker Hill Monument. They were built to look like that. The cables that are coming from these structures are to look like the rigging of the Constitution. So it was built with Boston's history in mind. It's the widest cable-stayed bridge in the country. It's 10 lanes wide. It also runs over Charles River. Charles River has been nicknamed the most educated river in the country because it runs right past Harvard, MIT, and Boston University. So very smart river. And of course, beyond the Zagum Bridge, we have TD Garden, very important part of Boston. That's where our Bruins and our Celtics play. Now we are passing the Old North End, clearly under a little bit of construction right now, but a very important part of Boston to go to if you like food. The North End is a predominantly Italian neighborhood, and if you're looking for somewhere to eat, definitely go to the North End. It has some of the best Italian restaurants, Italian eateries, and definitely go to Mike's Pastries. That is a staple of our city. Mike's Pastries has some of the best cannolis and puff pastries around. As a part of the North End, I will point out this tall white church here. This is the Old North Church. It is named for Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. The sexton of the church on that April night was told, "Oneth by land, twoeth by sea." He saw the British soldiers coming by sea, and so he placed 2 lanterns at the top of that church to signal to Paul Revere and 5 other people, who then rode horseback through the streets, letting Bostonians know that the British soldiers were coming. Paul Revere got all the way to Lexington before he was arrested. Very next morning was the Battle of Lexington and Concord, very first battle of the Revolution, and the first shots were fired. These are famously called the shots heard round the world. But since we have a little bit of time here, I want to tell one of my favorite stories on the tour, also about the North End. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of the Great Molasses Disaster of 1919. I see that some people have. So, in 1919, there was a very large vat of molasses here in the North End. They had all this molasses because there were 8 rum distilleries around the area that used it to create rum. It was a warm January day, particularly warm January day. The vat wasn't made very well, and it exploded. And 2.5 million gallons of molasses rode down Commercial Street, going 35 miles per hour. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of the phrase slow as molasses. Well, it wasn't slow that day. It was quite fast. It was quite a disaster. It killed over 20 people, over a dozen horses. Some people say that you can still smell the molasses at the North End. I don't know if it's that or Mike's Pastries. But the Boston Herald the next day did famously call it the Boston Molassacre.
Downtown Boston.
Now we are passing Constitution Wharf, named that because this is where the USS Constitution was built way back in 1797. As you can see today, it is a Coast Guard center. Coast Guard station. Right now we're passing a couple of white-hulled ships here. So the white-hulled ships are for search and rescue. Black-hulled ships are buoy tenders. Red-hulled ships are ships that we never want to see. Those are icebreakers. They're going to break up Boston Harbor in case it ever freezes over. The last time that Boston Harbor completely froze over was in 1904. So we haven't seen them in a really long time, but they are on call just in case we need them. Now I'd like to point out this wharf that has these blue and brick buildings on top. This is Battery Wharf. This is the site of the 54th Regiment of the Civil War, which is the very first all-African-American regiment in the country. In fact, there's a fantastic movie about it called Glory, starring Denzel Washington. And there's a great monument dedicating those soldiers here. I'll also to point out this walkway. It's kind of hugging these piers and wharfs. This is the Boston Harbor Walk. It's quite a newly constructed walk. It was built to bring Bostonians back to their roots, back to their waterfront. The walk is actually 41 miles long and counting. It's very long. That's because there's a new law in place in Boston. If you are going to build out onto the water, you have to include the Boston Harbor Walk, because Bostonians should always be able to see the waterfront and where they came from. In fact, there used to be a stigma around Boston that nobody wanted to be near the water because it was kind of dirty. But now that it's clean, we're really bringing everyone back to the water. People are taking boat tours, and we're kind of bringing ourselves back to our roots. And so people definitely love to be near Boston Harbor today. Now, there are two places around here where there is no harbor walk. One is where the Coast Guard is, not just for security reasons. The second is Union Wharf, which we are passing right now. This is a wharf of the 3-story brick condos on top. So these condos are built in the 1960s, so it's been grandfathered in. There is no walk here. However, these condos, 3 stories, 3 bedrooms, they come with 2 parking spots, which is really ideal in Boston. But one condo is going to cost you $2.5 million. My boss is on board and correcting me, so it's actually $3.5 million. It's been a while since I've done a tour, well, that's even more impressive. Now we are passing a beautiful view of Boston's skyline. Good picture, by the way. But I will point out this skyscraper with a clock on top. This is the Custom House Tower. It was built in 1914, fully constructed. It's the very first skyscraper in Boston. Interesting thing about the clock faces, most of them will never tell you the right time. One of the reasons why is because we live in a very windy city in Boston. So when it gets windy, wind will move the hands of the clock. So you can see time speed up on one side and time slow down on the other. So I knew that there were 2 yachts that were parked here because I got here a little bit early, and I did some research on these yachts. So there is a white yacht that is docked kind of perpendicular to where we are. I believe that this is the Cynthia, and when I looked it up, I love yachts, so I love to do research on them. This is the Cynthia, and good news, everyone, it is for sale. The Cynthia is for sale for $27 million. It is 55 meters long, and the year is 2005. That is a pretty cool yacht. Now, beyond that yacht, more history, I want to point out this green dome, and then behind that there's a taller white building with a gold dome. So that white building is called Faneuil Hall. It's called the Cradle of Liberty, because this is where the Sons of Liberty met to discuss the Revolution. In front of that, the green dome, is Quincy Market. It is the oldest open-air market in the country. Today it's a great place to eat, great place to shop. It's about a 3-minute walk from where we're going to dock. So if you want to get some good food and shop around, that is a good place to go. Now at the end of Long Wharf, you're going to see a very tall flagpole here, and we are about to line that flagpole up with the middle of State Street. You're going to see the Old State House. The Old State House is the site of the Boston Massacre. You may have heard of the Boston Massacre. It really wasn't much of a massacre. Only 5 people died, but it was called a massacre in the newspapers to create propaganda for the war, really rile people up. So the story goes, outside that Old State House, there's a group of British soldiers. They're being harassed by a couple of patriots, throwing ice and snowballs and rocks at them, being very rowdy. That's the Old State House. Now you can see it right down with the gold dome. Throwing rocks and snowballs, being very rowdy. The British soldiers thought that they were in more danger than they actually were, and they fired into the crowd. There is speculation that behind the Old State House, there may have been a house on fire. Someone yelled fire. The soldiers took this as a command to fire their guns. That's a possibility. 5 people were killed. Definitely 5 too many. Not much of a massacre, but it did help spark the American Revolutionary War. Got people really angry, ready to separate from Britain at that time. So we're about to head right back into Long Wharf. The last site that I would like to talk about is the New England Aquarium towards the right side of the boat. This is a fantastic place to go to in Boston. It has over 3,000 species of fish, over 20,000 animals. It is also home to Myrtle the turtle. She's a very famous turtle in Boston. She's over 90 years old and she looks fabulous for her age, so you can always go and visit Myrtle. I believe we might be waiting for a boat to come out of Long Wharf before we can head back in. But I want to thank everyone so much for being my guinea pigs on my first tour in like 4 months. Thank you so much for coming with us. Now that I said that the sun has come out, I hope everyone enjoyed their tour. As you're exiting the gangway, please make sure to use the handrails and be very careful. Also, make sure that you are wearing your masks as you're exiting the gangway and maintaining social distancing as much as you can. On behalf of myself and the crew, thank you so much for coming with us on this tour. Have a fantastic day in Boston.
This is the Boston Harbor Cruises first tour of 2020 season. So it's very safe to go on this cruise. So
like something bigger than a canoe with a motor. I want to caught fish and lobster. Yeah, got the first one over. Good notes? Yeah.
You know, I told you I wouldn't,
Yeah, but you were, I knew you would.
and I lied to you. I apologize in advance.
the ship is the Liberty Clipper. I rode this site a few years ago. This is the end of my video. If y'all like the video, press like and subscribe. Have a good day.